guys, welcome to another video, and today we're going to be talking about 12 tips and tricks that you can use to ace the IELTS listening section. You can really use these tips and go ahead and score a full 9 band score. And if you really want to do that, I would encourage you to continue watching because these tips are from my personal experience and I tell you they really work. You really don't need to go anywhere else to get these things. Okay, so I'm gonna go right into it, and the first tip that we're gonna begin with is that you need to know the test. So the format of the test, that's something you need to be familiar with. You need to know what goes on and how many questions are there. Just as a quick recap, if some of you guys might want to get a shorter version of it, here it is. There's 40 questions on the test in 4 sections. That means every section has 10 questions. Let me tell you about these sections. Like I said, 4 sections, 10 questions each, 40 questions. Section number 1 is a conversation. It's the easiest part of the test. And section number 4 will be the hardest, of course. So section 1, conversation, easiest part. It's gonna be like we're just talking over here. Okay. Section number 2 is about a guide. So basically, it's a monologue. That means there's going to be a single speaker and this person is going to be guiding someone. So one of the common scenarios would be, maybe there are some interns who have joined a new company. So, maybe their supervisor would be guiding them on things to do and things to avoid, and really, how the future of the internship is going to be looking like. So that's one thing that, just as an example, you can understand, okay? There's other things as well. It could be a tour guide. A lot of times, it could be a trip to the zoo where the tour guide will be telling you about the things and everything that you can find at the zoo. There can even be a map-like question on the screen where they'll basically direct you and tell you that, okay, here is the lion sits over here. All these animals, different kinds of animals are over here. So all of these things can happen in part 2. Section 3 will be an academic discussion where 2 students will be discussing some academic project or something that they are supposed to do. Section 4 will be an academic lecture, and this is usually going to be where you are going to be doing all 10 questions at a stretch. So usually you get some time between the questions. You can maybe get first 5 questions first and then 5 more questions in a section. It can also be 4, 6. The breakdown can be different depending on the passage, but really but in the last section, usually you will see that you have to do all 10 questions in a stretch. And that's the hardest bit. It's a lecture, it's an academic lecture, that is. Okay, so that's about knowing the format of the test. Let's move on to the next tip, and that is know the timings. So depending on whether you're taking the paper-based test or the computer-based test, remember that there can be some differences. For instance, in the paper-based test, you get 10 minutes in the end to transfer the answers to your answer sheet from your question paper. Okay, so that's one thing you need to take a note of. But that doesn't happen on the listening section on the computer-based test. So keep a note of that. Know the timings, know exactly how much time you're going to be getting. Okay, the number 3 part, and that is your number 3 tip, is that you need to answer the questions while listening. Now, this may be elementary for all of you guys who are familiar with the test, but if you're just starting out, if you're going to be starting out, this is a new thing for you. You need to answer while listening. Now, this is really the major difference between the TOEFL and the IELTS. Remember, the listening section on the IELTS is the same for both academic and general training people. So these tips apply to both. But when it comes to the TOEFL, you are asked to take the notes first. You basically listen, you take the notes during the lecture, and then you answer the questions. This doesn't happen on the IELTS test though. That's a different scenario, remember. Okay, so you need to answer while listening. You don't have any time after the test, okay? Keep a note of that. Tip number 4, you need to review the questions and the options before listening to the passage. Remember, before you listen to the passage, they'll tell you about this. Questions. You have some time to read questions 1 through 4. You need to understand those questions 1 through 4. You need to take a look at them. You need to know what you are going to be listening for. What are you searching for when you listen to the listening passage? What are the questions? Exact questions, you should know them, you should know the options, and only then you should proceed with the listening. Okay, of course, that's not something in your control, so make sure that you try to go through them as quickly as possible. A lot of times students make this mistake. After questions 1 through 4 are over, they may have some doubt in one of the questions, and then they get some time to take a look at questions 5 through 10. But what do? They instead look at question number 3 or 4. They're looking at it, they're trying to understand whether they did it right or not. That's the worst thing you can do. Don't do that. look at the next questions, understand those, know what you're searching for, and then go on with those questions. At the end of the section, once you've finished all 10 questions, you'll get some time and then you can look at those other questions that you were concerned about. Okay, remember that. Next, let's move on to tip number, I believe, 5, right? And that is, do not take notes. It's not needed, not required. If you take notes, you're not going to be able to listen. See, there's already a lot of multitasking involved. You're listening, you're searching for the right answer, and then you're also noting down the answer. And on top of that, you also start taking notes. That's a bad idea. Don't do that. You don't need to take notes. Just listen very, very carefully for the answers, for the exact answers to your questions, and that's really it. Okay? So, I'm hoping that you're noting these down. They're really, really important tips. Let's talk about tip number 6, and that is keep your eye on the current and the next question. Let me tell you why I wrote down this tip. See, it's important to note down the current question and the next question. Have a note of that in your mind. So if, let's say, you're at question number 6 is done, and you're at question number 7 now, remember that the questions appear in a serial order. Whatever the listening passage is, questions will appear in a serial order. So, question number 7 is definitely going to come after question number 6, and the answer to question number 7 is also going to be after question number 6's answer. So, let's say you are at question number 7. You need to have question number 8 in your mind. Let's say that question number 7 is something like, what is Mr. X's tie color? And let's say question number 8 is, what is Mr. X's, hair color? Well, you see, the important bit to remember over here is that, let's say that you're listening for the tie color, and just so happens that you miss out the tie color. You don't really hear it. Well, if you continue searching for that, and your mind is continuing to search for that I want the tie color, I want the tie color, whenever it will come, I'll write it down. Because you've already missed it, you're gonna miss out on the next questions as well. Chances are you're gonna miss out on the hair color. You're gonna miss out on everything else that the test is asking you for. So it's important, keep your next 2 questions in mind, that alright, this is what I'm searching for, but if I don't get this and this thing comes, I need to know that I have missed out an answer. Okay, so remember that. Okay, now guys, these are from my personal experiences. I hope these apply to you, but this is something that I'm really, really keen about. I think this tip is really, really important. Okay, so this is always read the instructions, tip number 7. A lot of times people are overconfident. No matter how many times you've taken the IELTS, you need to know exactly how many words to fill in, right? You can fill in 1, 2, 3 words, whatever it is, they will tell you. And you need to know that. You need to know it. It's as simple as that. So keep your eyes on the instructions every single time, no matter how many times you've taken the test. Remember the instructions and only then go ahead with the test. Okay? Great. Let's move on. And tip number 8 is spellings. Don't make silly mistakes, because these will cost you. You really don't want to miss out on points that you already had, but just because of a silly mistake you couldn't get them. So always remember, when you get some time in the end, 50, 60 seconds, whatever it is, 30 seconds even, just review all of the spellings. That's important. Okay, now tip number 9, remember that the speakers may change their minds, and this happens a lot. Let's say that we're talking about Emily's favorite dish. Well, Emily may talk about how she used to like prawns before, but later on she started liking chicken. Okay, but now she doesn't like chicken either. She likes maybe just vegetarian food. So in the options you will have all 3: prawns, chicken, and vegetarian food. And in the end, it's really you who decides what is the correct one, right? So remember, the speakers change their minds all the time, and you have to choose the correct answer. Okay, so that's important. Tip number 10 is to learn to move on if you miss. It's very, very important, guys. A lot of times if you get caught up, you're not trained regarding this, that you keep thinking about the question that you couldn't get, it's gonna cost you very heavily. You have to move on. There's really no choice over there. Okay, tip number 11, only use IELTS official material. There's so many official material books. There's about, I think, 15 books right now. Each book has 14, I think each book has 4 tests. That's 60 listening passages. Not passages, actually. 60 listening, complete tests. That is 4 sections on each test. So you need to use those. You need to use those. Don't use any other material. That's important. I would say definitely just go with the IELTS material, official one, okay? And finally, your tip number 12 is going to be that you need to practice a lot. You need to finish at least 10 sections before going on to the test day. You need this. Remember, if you've had enough practice, you'll be confident. You won't make any mistakes on the test day. There won't be any last minute blunders, and you will be more confident in yourself. Okay, so remember these tips. I think that these will really help you boost up your score. And apart from that, even if you're just starting out, you have already done a lot here. You've achieved a lot. There's a lot of information in this video. Make sure that you note these down if you have to. If you haven't done that, we've provided the transcripts. Of course, you can use those. But apart from that, it's important. Remember these tips and get your good score. Let me know how many bands you scored. And apart from that, all the best for your test. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you like the video. I'll see you in the next one.